Hey, Hope Warrior. Thank you so much for tuning in to another story. Stephanie and I love sharing them with you. We know that hearing how other people reclaim their power impacts your mindset in amazing ways. We have another story to share with you today, but before we jump into that, I would love to invite you to join us for the next Hope Warrior Academy. We are claiming our power together in community through a 4-week journaling journey. Stephanie and I are working through this now with a small group of women, and we are so excited about what we are learning. We cannot wait to bring it to more people virtually, so pause this and head on over to www.hopewarriorproject.com to register. Go ahead, I'll wait. We sincerely hope to get the opportunity to work with you on getting unstuck and living your purpose. Until then, let's get to more stories. Hey friends, it's Lydia, one of your hosts, and today's story is highlighting the power of grief. Now, I know grief does not initially feel like something that would give you power, but our guest has her experience to share with us, and it is very inspiring and empowering. Her name is Hope Reger, and just as her name suggests, she is naturally a hopeful, positive, and upbeat person who really tries to make the best out of every situation. Feeling powerless is not something she generally struggled with until her son was tragically shot and killed at the age of 19. Not only was she suffering with the sudden and unfair loss of her son, she also felt cheated out of justice when his assailant claimed self-defense and the case never even went to trial. How was she supposed to make the best out of this? Through her grieving, she searched and prayed to understand what purpose there could be in this tremendous pain that she was feeling. Losing a loved one and not having answers can be an ultimate source of powerlessness. I can attest to that as I lost my mother in my early 20s, and I really believe that not allowing myself to properly grieve that loss sent me down a path that just led to more pain and more heartbreak. I don't want the same for you or your loved ones. Loss is difficult enough without the sense of powerlessness negatively affecting all the other areas of your life. I know death is not something that most of us want to talk about, and that's why I avoided it myself for so long. But I honestly wish I had heard stories like Hope's back when I was dealing with my loss. So let's get to it. Here is Stephanie's interview with Hope, and I'll check back in to highlight some of the key takeaways that I want to make sure you don't miss.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Hope, thank you so much for joining me today. We may get a little confused as we're talking because, your name's Hope and we're going to be talking about hope. So we'll just figure that out as we go. But
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's our pleasure to have you on. And I know this is a really hard story, that we're going to be sharing today, but I feel like it's going to be something that a lot of people will be able to resonate with. And I was thinking about this. We all have, are, or will grieve at points in our lives. So This is something that I feel anyone will be able to relate to. And so I think they will really gain some strength from your story. So I appreciate you being on to share that.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So, losing a loved one is always difficult. But then, in your situation, add to that, this was your son. He was young. And then, only 19 years old, which is very young. And then the circumstances of his death were just absolutely tragic. So to help our audience kind of understand and get a picture of the situation, can you share, what were the circumstances? What happened?
Absolutely. So, like you said, in November of 2016, I received a knock at the door, and I lived in a condo at the time, and I peered out my bedroom window thinking, who is this at 6:30 in the morning? And I saw 2 police officers standing there waving for me to come down. And I thought, well, this is weird. What in the world? So I answered the door, and they asked me if I was Justin's mom. And I said, absolutely. And they handed me a piece of paper with a name and number on it. It said, this person's trying to get a hold of you. And I said, do you know what this is about? Because surely if this was something serious and tragic, they would have told me, like, face to face. And they said, no, we're not sure. That we just know that they're trying to get a hold of you. So I was like, okay, thank you. And shut the door. And I went upstairs, and I thought, gosh, that's odd. Right. And so I dialed the number, and the person on the other line answered Greene County Coroner. And he said, yes, we've been trying to get a hold of you. I have some news for you. Your son, Justin, has passed away.
Mm.
And I was, you're in utter shock, right? And you're like, what in the world, what happened? And he proceeded to tell me that Justin and lived with two roommates, and one of the roommates and him got into a verbal altercation, calling each other names. I don't know what exactly happened, and I'll probably never know the truth of what exactly happened, but they turned into from a verbal to a physical altercation. And one of the roommates had a gun and felt like his life was threatened by Justin, even though Justin didn't have a knife or gun or weapon. They were just like physically punching and throwing punches. And he put a gun to Justin's chest and shot and killed him. And I just remember rushing home and being there and thinking, how do I get my son from the morgue to the funeral home so I could see him?
Yeah.
So I could be there for him, so I could touch him. And that the gentleman was arrested for murder that night. He was taken into jail and was bonded out by his parents. And he eventually pled self-defense, and without, it was months down the road, and he never was indicted at all. So there was no trial.
Wow. And so this was months, like you said, before he, pled the self-defense and was released, right? So what, during that time, what was going through your mind?
I was pissed. I was angry at everybody and everything, after the funeral, and you're planning everything, and you just are going through the motions, and seeing him in the funeral home was probably the hardest, just walking in, and they allowed me to see him, and walking into a viewing room with your son sitting there on a hospital bed, and he's so cold, and it's not really your son, and just the traumatics of everything. You start planning the funeral. I think there should be a funeral advocate, because you can't think straight, and it's just this. I talk about the first couple months of Justin passing is like candle wax melting. It's like it's happening, but everything's sort of blurry and melty, and you don't really know, how to function. As a mother, you try to be there for everybody else. I know that was one of the things, like it was right around Thanksgiving, and then it was Christmas, and I was like, I got to go Christmas shopping for my grandkids. And you put on this mask. It's a mask living 2 to 3 months that you are just in the moment, just trying to survive. Sometimes the last thing you want to do is talk about it. And then sometimes the only thing you want to do is talk about it. And then on top of that, adding that level of, so many stories circulating and so many things said, and him being out, this is a small town. So he was out living within the community where we were a part of. And it was hard. And I was like, why my son? Why Justin? Why him that had his whole life ahead of him? And, I was angry. I was angry at God. I was angry at everybody. I was angry that he was out walking around and my son wasn't. And just the anger and the frustration. And but when I was around other people, like we had a birthday celebration for Justin. And I thought I was doing the greatest thing, celebrating his life. And it was only February, the 1st of February. And this had happened in November and holidays. And I remember thinking, we're going to celebrate his life. It's going to be a happy day. And, we're going to talk about stories. And for the most part, it was a good day. It was a good day. And family got to be together and celebrate Justin. But it was also, I was the hostess with the mostest, trying to please everybody, trying to take care of everybody. instead of what I really wanted to do was just be by myself and cry and just feel the pain of the grief. And so that was probably one of the hardest things. That was probably the hardest day. At the end of the day, I was completely mentally and physically exhausted.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And it's like, it sounds like you were trying to be old Hope, at that moment. Because, we heard in the intro, you're this upbeat, fun person, looks at the positive. I could see that you would totally be an amazing hostess for any party. And so, that's what you would have been in the past, but, trying to do that at this moment, probably just wasn't the right time for you, right? To be doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree with you. Like, and everybody wanted that old Hope,
Yeah.
right? Nobody wants to be around sad and depressing Hope and mad at the world. And even though they may have been feeling it, it was like they could count on me to be the bone, the strong, the person that's, uplifting and saying, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through it. Even though I felt like this completely is hell. I'm in hell right now. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, Hope, you got two choices, right? You can either sit here and be enraged and angry and frustrated, or you can try to find that hope that used to be there. It's going to be different. I'm never going to be that same Hope, but I can try to find the hope that I loved, that people loved, and that more importantly, Justin loved, and honor him by finding that person again, by finding that love and hope and finding, I lost Justin. I didn't want to lose Hope physically, mentally. And I knew that that was important to me. And so working on the grief, that's where I started to take that process.
And it's such a tough situation to be in, I'm sure. I mean, and we've on our show we've talked about grief before, and it's not like it's just a straightforward timeline process. You have 6 months, year, whatever, and then shipshape, life's back to normal. It's not like that, and it can be different for every person, every situation. And so, knowing that you wanted to get back to the old Hope, but in this new situation, it would, like I said, it would never be the same.
Right.
But you could get back to that core of who you are, but with, there's going to be some differences. But giving yourself some time, and letting yourself know that, okay, right now I'm not going to be that old Hope. Is that something you had to intentionally tell yourself to do? I mean, how did you do that?
So it was a lot of work, and I'm still working on it, right? I still, like you said, you're exactly right. Grief doesn't stop at 6 months or a year. I even Googled it one time for my group, which we'll talk about. But and they said the average time of grief is 2 years. And I was like, no wonder everybody's like, let's go get this party started and ending in 2 years, right? Because we Google everything.
Right.
But I knew that it was going to take some time, but there had to be some processes that I had to find. One, I had to find some answers, like why, and I had to find some answers, like dig deep in my soul, like why this happened and what I can do to make it better and what it was my purpose. And so I started going to counseling, and she was amazing. I love this woman. She really, really helped me guide through. There was a lot of what ifs. What if I would have done this? What if I would have done that? And she told me that, free will is huge. So whatever I would have did, it would have been countered by free will. So even though I could say, well, if I would have made him live with me instead of those roommates, and she was like, I don't know if you could make any adult person live with you that doesn't want to, right? And so it finally hit me like, I need to start forgiving myself. And I started going to a support group, and the counselor talked me into it. It was a Christian-based group. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not, the best Christian to be going into it right now because I don't like God and I'm not really happy with him right now. And I really don't know much about God, but I know that this sucks and I'm pretty mad, right? And so she talked me into going. I was like, okay. So I showed up and I thought, I'm just going to go in here one time. I'm going to make my case. I'm going to cry and I'm going to walk out of here and say, I'm still pissed off. And so I went in there and I told the lady, first of all, I was the only one there. I was like, oh gosh, this is a one-on-one with this lady. She's going to find out I'm mad as hell as a Christian. So she said to me, she said, God understands why you're mad and God wouldn't imagine you not being mad. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not what I came here to hear. And so I started going to the group and it was an amazing group that I learned a lot about God and a lot about me and a lot of reasons that why things happen, not answers, but reasons maybe. And I remember driving home one night and I was still, still not understanding why Justin. And I remember asking God, I was like, okay, so what the heck is my purpose? You did this to me. What do you want from me? Because apparently I'm still here for a reason. And just as you and I are talking, I heard, and I don't know if it's on the radio, in my head, out loud. I don't know how I got it, but I heard the words, be kind, just be kind. And so I was like, what? That's what you want me to do? I'm like, really? I'm kind. I'm pretty nice to people. I pay compliments. I'm not, and I remember thinking, what the heck does that mean? But I heard it. I know I heard it. And so I remember volunteering and trying to find my purpose and just being nice to people and patient. I remember that I was going to pay it forward and I was in a drive-thru and I thought, okay, this is my first timer. And I was walking through, or I was driving through and it was a Tim Hortons and they only have one window, right? So you don't have to pay for it and then pick it up. You can just pay for it. It's just one window. So I said, okay, this is it. And I don't even drink coffee. And so I was like, okay. So I told the guy, I said, hey, I want to pay for the person behind me. How does that work? I didn't know how it worked. And he was like, well, his order's, $3 and something was really minimal. And I said, okay, I want to pay for it. So I guess it happens where people may not want to pay for it if it's more than, I don't know. But I was like, okay, I'll pay for it. And I look up and his name tag, I'm not kidding you, said Justin, which is my son's name.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm crying, pouring tears. And this guy is probably, get the heck out of my line, lady. Because I, oh my gosh, this is it, right? This is what I'm meant to do. And so I got out of that line crying and I thought, okay. And then I was thinking, wait a minute, if God wants me to pay it forward, he better make me rich because I can't keep doing this, right? And so I just continued to do, volunteering and paying it forward. And over the years, for whatever reason, when COVID hit and it was all about death and COVID was last year we were counting death by numbers. It was on TV, right? And I was like, I got to do something. I got to do something for all these people because not only are people grieving, but there's a whole level of it. We're in a pandemic. You can't see, you can't have funerals. So there's a whole new level. And that's when Grief to Hope was born.
And what a way to pay it forward. I mean, it so much you said there that just struck me. This idea of being kind, for what purpose? You were already a kind person, like you said, right? So what did that mean? And then paying it forward. And so I know we're gonna talk about this group that you put together. And I'm just wondering, maybe this was the first steps of putting you on this path of then doing something bigger to help so many people that are grieving. And you've had that experience, you talked about what is the purpose, right, for you going through this. And I believe that in life things just happen, right? we are just, life just happens. And a lot of times it does seem absolutely unfair and you don't understand, well, why did this happen to me? I'm a good person.
Right.
But just life just happens. And I think sometimes it's as hard as it is, we just have to accept that. But then what can I learn from this? What can I do with this experience, with this pain? And so just what you're talking about, you looked for that purpose in your pain. So let's talk about that now. So you said, you started this group called Grief to Hope.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about how you started it, kind of the structure of the group, how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said. Taking something that you have no answers to is really hard to start saying, okay, it was given to me. Now, what am I going to do to make it positive? Because so many people would have been okay with me laying in bed, curled up for the rest of my life, and they would have understood. And we all do that, right? We all understand, but it's the people, and it's not just me, all the people out here that are grieving over any kind of tragedies or any kind of grieving, grief and loss. They're strong. They are warriors, and they are amazing, strong, courageous people. And I'm just one of them. But the Grief to Hope was, we're all on Zoom, which, if I could do it, anybody could do it. And I was thinking, okay, well, we're all at home, right? How about I do a group that just meets in their PJs or drinking coffee or drinking wine or whatever they want to do, and just come and be their own selves, and talk about their loss and be around people. Because that's what I found the greatest in the groups that I was in, is just being around people that understood what I was going through. Because unless you've been through grief, and most of us have in different ways or forms, but there can be days where you don't even want to get out of bed, let alone take a shower, get dressed, and go to a building and talk about your feelings. So I thought, okay, let's do this at home. Let's do this virtually, and you can do it by phone. So it's a 7-week program, and it's called Grief to Hope, and it's all done virtually. We meet once a week. And the first week is basically my introduction to the program. And I talk about me and my why and what happened. And I ask for other people to introduce themselves if they want to. It's completely volunteer. Nobody has to speak. And then we talk about, open discussions, and we have main themes throughout the rest of the week. So week 2 through 6 is grief. It's the word grief. So the first one's gift of time. And that's basically how time, we all hate this. Whoever grieves hates that time heals all wounds. They're like, that's the worst thing ever. It doesn't. But we talk about time in a way that how time can be a gift, and how it can also, cause people to rush. Let's go. It's been 3 months. You're still crying. What's the problem? So we talk about that. We talk about the next is receive help. And that's, how do you ask for help when you're grieving? And most of us can't. Most of us don't even know what the heck we need help with, or how to respond when somebody asks you. We get that blank. If you need anything, let me know. We all know that's not, that makes you feel better. That doesn't make you feel better, right? But your heart's in the right place. Don't get me wrong. So it's like, find that trusted friend that you can say, hey, I would really like it if somebody could take this dog to the vet. I can't do it. Or I need somebody to pick up my groceries, or if somebody could come watch the kids for just 2 hours. Find that trusted friend where somebody can come to you and say, so what can I help you with, Hope? And you can say, you know what? Susan knows exactly what I need. She has the list. If you wanted to ask her, she's more than willing to give it to you. And it's a win-win. Your pride doesn't have to become involved. So really, how to ask for help, how to receive help. And then we talk about inspire, which is really weird that we talk about inspire and grief in the same sentence. But inspiration is what gets you out of bed. And that could be your kids. That could be your grandkids, your spouse, your mother, your career, your job, you're writing a book, you're creating a grief group. It can also be, just making it through the day. It's whatever gets you out of bed and inspires you. And then we have E is expectations, what people expect of us, what we expect from other people. You know, sometimes we think that people know what to say when there's grief. And if you're like the normal person, that's like the worst subject to talk about, right? There's always awkwardness when you're like, I don't know what to ask her. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to approach it. And we have to be forgiving, right? Because normally they always will say, he's in a better place. Really? Is that what you think? He's in a better, people say that, but they mean well. So you have to be forgiving. Yeah. And then F is feel everything. And feel everything has morphed into this, I love it, tribute. So we get together, we share pictures, we tell stories, we exchange like what we miss the most, and it's just saying their name. And then the last of the program series is to hope, and that is, what's your next step? What will keep you moving forward? And it could be as simple as, I want to go through his clothes. I want to donate his clothes. I want to go through pictures. I want to write a book. I want to take a shower. I mean, it could be anything, whatever your next steps are. I want to join a group, or I want to talk in Grief to Hope. And then we take a break, and then we start it back up again. And you can join it as often as you like. We have most of my group is repeat. We're starting our 4th season in September. And a lot of people come back. And the greatest thing that's come out of it is one, we're together, we understand, it's casual, we respect each other. Nobody's grief is any worse or more severe than others. And we respect each other's, we respect each other's religious, we respect each other's beliefs and thoughts. And it's just an amazing place to be. And it's every week for 7 weeks, and then we take a break, and then we start it back up.
It sounds like an amazing program, really. And I love the way you talked about, what the different letters mean. And even I think for even someone who's not grieving, that was helpful to hear. And I totally agree and like resonate with this idea of being around and being able to talk to people who understand. Yeah. There is nothing like that. I went through, infertility was my story, right? Mm-hmm. So being able to talk to other people that understood that was a game changer, because I don't know, it just makes it different. I can't even really explain why, because it's not like they necessarily know what to say. They can't say anything to make you feel better, but they get it, right? And I think it just makes you feel more comfortable about being open, because they're not going to judge you, because they've been where you are, right? Yeah, so I think there's definitely power in that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's different levels. Like I'm almost 5 years in, and then there's some that's 3 months in, and some that are 13 years in. And they, when you talk about certain things, they're shaking their head. Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. And I think the group is incredible, because we don't try to fix each other. We just listen, and we just support, and we offer, this is how I handled this, or this is how I handled that. But there's also those times where, can you believe that she said that? And we have laughter too, right? It's not all about sadness and crying. It's about those good moments too, and being able to laugh and to cry in the same session is amazing. And I'm just blessed by it.
Absolutely. I can see how you would be. I can see how the people in the group would be blessed by it. And this is a free program, right? Anyone can join. Yeah. So I think that's
anyone can join.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask you too, is this because you said, so apparently it's for anyone, I guess, in any grieving stage, whether it's brand new loss or, and happened years ago. So it could be anyone, right?
Yep. Anyone can come. And even if you're supporting somebody that's grieving, if it can help, like you said, you can join too. I've never had anyone be on there, but I would love to have it. I'd love to have somebody's, opinions and thoughts about how, we can actually help them help their, loved ones if they don't want to join. So I would love to see it expand to people that are just supporting someone that's lost, because sometimes that's even better. Like if I know that, my husband would ask me, is it going to be a bad day today, or you're having a bad day? And I'm like, really? You really need to say that to me? But I think if his heart's in the right place, right? So I think it would be great if we had people that are supporting anyone that's grieving and anyone that's grieving, no matter when it happened or where or how.
Right. Well, and that reminds me of what you talked about having this trusted friend. I thought that what an excellent idea, having someone that if someone else wants to do something, help, you can just point them to that person. Well, I mean, I've never even thought about that, heard of that, but what a great idea to just take that burden off of you. And also, I mean, I'm sure, having that person, they're going to feel so blessed to be able to support, you or the person grieving, to be able to do that. So what a fantastic idea.
It's a win-win. It's a win for you. You get the help. It's a win for that person that feels like they're helping, supporting you. And then also for the person that you trust. It's a win-win. Win.
Yeah. Win-win-win.
Win-win-win.
Wins all around. Yeah. Well, this has been a really, really good interview. I've learned so much from what you've said. And that's one of the reasons, when we do these interviews, we know that not everyone is going to be able to relate exactly to our guest's story, right? But we feel like there's always something that they can take away for themselves, whether it's something that they can be like, well, that concept, that idea that, forgiving myself, giving myself grace, I can use that in my situation. Or like in this situation, understanding a little bit better how to support or understand or even be able to recommend to someone that's going through grief, point them in the direction of something like this. So I feel like it's just helpful all around, regardless of your connection to grief at this point in life. So
awesome. I appreciate that.
Hey guys, it's Lydia again. Once again, we have a story that is unique in circumstances, but there are a lot of themes that we have heard in other stories on the podcast. This is so encouraging because it means that even though we all go through different things, we find power in many of the same ways. Early in the interview, Hope talks about the what ifs. We have heard this many times before, people wondering if they could have done something to avoid what happened in the past, or wondering if similar things might happen again in the future. When I lost my mom, I carried a lot of guilt because I went to work the day that she passed away. She had just gotten home from being hospitalized, and I kept asking myself, why didn't I stay home? I wondered if she would still be around if I was there to keep an eye on her. The only thing this thought was accomplishing was that it was making me feel guilty and it was keeping me stuck in the past. Obviously, we cannot change the past. And honestly, when we do this, I feel like in a way we're questioning God's power. We try to cling on to this false sense of control, when really the more we cling on to it, the more out of control we feel. There is power in surrendering control and trusting God completely. This means changing the what ifs, referring to the past, to what now, and changing the what ifs, referring to the future, to even if. Knowing that even if something difficult happens, God is ultimately good. He's ultimately in control, and He will be there with us to equip us with what we need. Another consistent theme throughout these stories is community. Hope talks about joining a support group. We keep hearing this again and again and again. Get around people who are able to have empathy for you because they have lived similar experiences. It has tremendous healing power. Then there is this concept of purpose. When we have a clear understanding of our purpose, life's challenges become a part of that and we can face them more gracefully. Hope prayed for answers on what her purpose was, and she received the message to be kind. The one benefit of any and all hardships that we can face is that they connect us and make us empathetic to one another, because we realize that people can be facing similar things. How often do we think that our purpose is something that we do, like a career? When we're children, we're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Meaning, what do you want your job to be? But really, kind would actually be a much more appropriate answer to that question. Purpose needs to be something that can be lived in an unlimited amount of ways. It needs to be able to evolve and grow with you and with the world. Hope felt that God gave her the purpose of being kind to others, and that opened her up to finding different opportunities to live that out. And the circumstances of the world inspires how she does that. I love that she was led to start this Grieve to Hope group because she's encouraging people to grieve intentionally. It is a process that needs to happen to be able to keep living. So why stumble through it, potentially hurting yourself and others like I did, if there's a better way? Quickly, I just wanted to go over what she shared that they talk about in the group, going through the word grieve as kind of steps in the process. Honestly, grieving is a part of life, even if you haven't lost anyone. Any type of loss requires grieving. Maybe the loss of a job or loss of a relationship. Honestly, even your kids growing up can feel like a loss. My oldest daughter just turned 8, and the night before her birthday, when I was putting her to bed, I had to say goodbye to 7-year-old version of her. And we cried together because we loved 7-year-old version of her so much. And it just felt good to honor that feeling together and to let that emotion pass through us and to have a good cry. So the G of grieve in her group, they talk about the gift of time, not rushing, not being on a timeline, and also holding on to the hope that time really does provide healing. And then the R stands for receiving help, humbling yourself and just knowing that you were never meant to do this on your own. The I standing for inspire. What inspires you to keep going and to keep healing? What is your why? The E standing for expectations of ourselves and others. Being clear on those expectations so that we know if they're realistic or not and that we can manage them. Giving people grace, understanding that people mean well and sometimes just really don't know what to say. The F standing for feeling everything. And I feel like this one to me is the biggest because in my grieving journey, I didn't want to feel the negative emotions that came with losing my mom. And I pushed them down, tried to just focus on the positive, and it really didn't serve me well because what you resist persists, right? So you really just have to feel it all and just let that energy pass through you. I mean, it can really feel good to have a good cry. And so in their group, they talk about their loss. They let themselves feel the feelings that come with it and maybe even have a good cry. So let's get back to the interview to hear how you can connect with Hope.
So how can they find the support group if they would like to connect in with that?
Absolutely. So I have a website. It's www.grief2hopesupport.com. And on that website, you can sign up. I'm doing newsletters now, but you can also email me directly right through that site. I'll get back to you. I'm really good about following up. So if you have a question or concern about the program, put it in the website and send it to me. It's very easy. And I'll respond back. And if you want to, join the newsletter. I send that out each month that I don't have a class or program. You can also find me on Facebook, Hope Reger, or Grief to Hope has a Facebook. We also have a private group in the Facebook that, my members have joined, and they sort of talk about their week. And if something happens, they can communicate when we're not in session. And it's been a real blessing to have that. And then Instagram, Grief to Hope, and then LinkedIn is both me, Hope Reger, and Grief to Hope. So all those channels.
All right. So surely something for everyone to be able to find and connect in with you. That's wonderful. And I think it's a great idea, to have because these program, like you said, you don't have the program, it's not constant, right? You have a session, then you take a break. So having a Facebook group or whatever that people can still connect in during the meantime is a really nice option as well. And knowing, again, they're going to be with the people who understand. So, and this is a virtual world we're living in today, right? So, this is the way we do things.
Right, right.
Well, Hope, thank you so much for sharing such an important part of your life and your story and your son's story with us today. I mean, it was a real blessing, I feel like, and just reminding us of the strength that we can gain through allowing ourselves to grieve, and this process of putting ourselves around people who understand. There's strength in there, and that there's power in that. So thank you for sharing that with us today. I really appreciate it.
It's been amazing. Thank you.
If you were inspired by today's guest, be sure to save this episode so you can go back and listen to it again. Making the shift from feeling powerless to empowered is not a quick and easy thing to do, we know, but our desire is that you've gained hope and confidence that it's possible and so worth it. Now, go hit that subscribe or follow button so you don't miss the next episode.